Hello. So I'm making this video on Monday morning, the day after the first weekend protest in London, and I want to talk to you about some of the absolute successes of the protest, and also I want to encourage you now to come to next weekend's protest on the 18th and 19th of August outside the Excel Arena in London. So this is what happened. We had over 100 people turn up, 108 people. The security were completely on our side. They gave us an area of land that they put some fencing up so that we were permitted within that area to protest. We were told when we step outside the area we're not protesters, we can move around and talk to people, but we're not protesting. It was absolutely fantastic. Lots of people said, look, Jehovah's Witnesses are not going to look at you, you are apostates. You would be amazed. You would have been amazed if you came along and saw what happened. Please, please come along on the 18th and the 19th and see it for yourself. Because if you don't see it, you can't believe it. So first of all, people did come up and speak to us. Some not very friendly and some very friendly, and I'll talk about that later. Lots and lots of people photographed us. Some people, Jehovah's Witnesses, walked down past the protest with the camera on, videoing it, walking all the way down. Lots of people took selfies of themselves with us behind them. Lots of people took photographs of a friend with us accidentally behind them. It was amazing. You wouldn't believe it. Jehovah's Witnesses are not doing this anymore. Lots of them are. I'm not saying that they weren't told to ignore us. They were. They were told not to come out onto the Western Concourse. They were told not to approach us, not to speak to us. But guess what? They did anyway. You would not have believed what you saw. So the other thing that happened, which was incredible, was we all received private messages from various individuals saying, I was at the convention today, thank you so much, thank you for being there for us. I couldn't come and speak to you, or I wanted to come and speak to you but I was too scared. I wanted to come and speak to you but an attendant stopped me. We saw that attendant saying, brother, come away please. And we saw parents shouting at the children, get away from there, and the kids going, I was only looking. But people were messaging us privately. One person was in a lift in the hotel later on in the evening, and a young girl got in, 17-year-old, and she looked at them and said, were you at the protest? And they said, yeah, you were Jehovah's Witness? She went, yeah. She went, thank you very much. And she was close to tears. And it was really moving. People have been thanking us. People have been contacting us. In terms of publicity, obviously it's been shared all over social media, so here's what I'm asking you to do. If you can come on the 18th and 19th of August, please do. It's just an amazing experience. But if you can't come, please share the photos and the posts in any groups that you're in and with anyone that you can safely share it with. I appreciate some of you have still got witness family, so don't share it in a way that will jeopardise you. But if you can at all share the protest invites, the protest itinerary, the protest photographs, please do, because the more publicity we get, the better. And as I said right at the beginning, the audience for us was never really Jehovah's Witnesses. The audience was the wider public. Do you remember the Warwick protest? They weren't trying to get people in Bethel to come out and leave Bethel. It wasn't for the employees in the Warwick. It was for the publicity they got. And remember what publicity they got. They ended up on a Canadian documentary that got out to 33 million people. So I'm not saying we're going to have that success. I'd love to be able to promise it, but who knows? Who knows what will happen? But also, who knows who would be walking past and not being able to look, not being allowed to look, but secretly taking note and contacting us later, or Googling later, or looking up JW facts later. This protest was absolutely not a failure. It was absolutely a success. One of the other things that happened was that the police got called on a particular individual that was with us. Unfairly, I should say. There wasn't a problem at all and there was nothing wrong. But when the police turned up, one of the organisers of the protest went over and spoke to them, reassured them that everything was okay. And he said, it's funny you should turn up actually, because what we're actually protesting is the fact that Jehovah's Witnesses don't phone the police and report paedophiles. And so they were really interested, and they got a really good unwitness from that that person, and somebody else took selfies with them. And there's a photograph that I'm going to try and share that's one of the protesters with two policemen with big smiles on their faces, looking really happy. And I was particularly pleased that the police got called, because that made my banner come true. My banner said Dummy's Guide to the Two-Witness Rule, when to phone the police when apostates stand with banners, when not to phone the police when a child is raped in your congregation. So I love the fact that the police got called, because that's exactly what we said would happen, and it did. And the police were on our side, and the XL security were on our side. So one of the ways we used the XL security, because he said we're here to keep the witnesses safe and to keep you safe, just to make sure everything happens legally, and we were like, yeah, that's what we want. There were occasions during the day when Jehovah's Witnesses would come up and shout at us quite abusively. And of course there were a lot of people there who were abusees when they were children themselves. And Karen Morgan had her story, all the newspaper articles up on a board. And somebody came up to her and just said to her face, "You're lying, this is all lies." And she was saying, "This is about me. These are newspaper articles about me. And Mark Sewell is in prison for 14 years. I'm not lying." And so then he said, "Oh, well, how long ago was it? It was years ago. Why can't you just get over it?" And at which point, other people were getting upset on her behalf. So Alison went round to the security and said, "Excuse me, can you remove this Jehovah's Witness from us, please? Because somebody's going to get upset soon." So we actually used the security to our benefit to remove Jehovah's Witnesses from us, because they were being abusive and we were being polite, friendly, happy, engaging. It was an absolutely legal, peaceful protest, and it worked. It was fantastic. The other thing that happened was the people who came along to the protest, they all had their own stories of trauma and abuse and neglect and all sorts of other terrible things. And people didn't know what was going to happen in terms of their own emotional journey. And what did happen, because we were all together in an area together, was we all supported each other. And people were saying, "Do you know what? I'm amazed. I don't feel too bad at all. I feel okay. I'm not scared. I'm feeling happy. This is good." And people who were terrified to even come along because they didn't know how upset they were going to be were saying, "This is great." They were validated, they were listened to, they were heard, and they felt safe. And they were facing all the elders and all the Jehovah's Witnesses, 30,000 of them, and not feeling intense fear. So I would say, if you have a journey to go on, please come and get support from us. It's an amazing cathartic experience, protesting. It's not what you think it is. Nobody was shouting. It was not like a protest where you shout. It was like we were just stood, we were chatting to each other, we had balloons, we had two ladies brought a little stove along and were making everybody coffees and teas. The ladies in the ice cream van that were on the concourse selling to the witnesses said to one of our protesters, "Good on you, brilliant, thank you, well done." Amazing. What else happened? We went out in the evening and we had really lovely social in the evening, which was nice, and again cathartic and supportive. And we don't know what the other consequences are. We know that lots of the groups have had like a six-fold number of hits on their websites since the weekend. So we know that we've generated a lot of interest. So please come along if you can, and if you can't, please share the shit out of this protest, because we made a massive impact. Behind me you can see the story wall board that I've been collecting for months, and every time somebody sent me a story I would write it out and laminate it, and I sent each person a photograph of their story, so people that were seeing the photographs were saying, "I can see where my story is," because they knew what colour I'd written it in, because I'd sent them the photograph. And in addition, other people added more stories on the day, so there's a lot more on here. And of course we're protesting again next weekend, 18th and 19th. Did I mention 18th and 19th? Please come along and support us. What would be immense is if next weekend is even bigger than the weekend that's just gone. That's what I was going to say. Some people who came for the first weekend and had committed to 1 day came for 2 days. Some people that are committed for 2 days said, I'm coming next weekend. This was so good. I am determined to come next weekend. Some people were very against protest. Understandably, I get that. I'm not pressuring anyone into doing protest if it's not your thing. Some people were very against protest but said, actually, I think this is planned okay, so I'm going to go along. Those people said, I am absolutely coming next weekend. Let's do this. It was such a positive experience. So here's the message in case you didn't know. 18th and 19th on Excel Arena on the Western Concourse. You can get the DLR line in London and you get off at Customs House from 12 o'clock noon. At 10 to 12 I will be giving a briefing to anybody new who wasn't here last weekend to give the same message that the senior security chap from Excel gave to me, that what we can and can't do, where we can stand, how they'll support us. And please, 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 please come along. You will not believe what you see. You will not believe how positive and confident and happy you feel when you've stood for 2 hours with fellow cult survivors. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you all there.